There is a $2 powder in the garden aisle of every farm supply store that makes any soil grow anything without synthetic fertilizer. Not improves it temporarily, transforms it permanently at the mineral level. One application into depleted or sandy soil and the entire mineral foundation that drives root development, disease resistance, water retention, and crop yield rebuilds itself from the ground up, just as it does after every ice age when glacial rock flower blankets continents and turns barren ground into the world's most fertile farmland within decades. A $200 billion synthetic fertilizer industry exists because farmers have been convinced that depleted soil needs chemistry laboratories, not geology. The man who first documented the alternative was called a charlatan and had his books removed from libraries. The compound he championed still grows more food per dollar than anything the synthetic fertilizer industry has ever produced. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. This is where we open the vaults the industry welded shut. The year is 1882, and a German biochemist named Julius Hensel is standing in a mill house in the Rhineland, watching stone-grinding wheels process grain. He notices millstone fragments mixing with the grain meal and spreads this stone dust across a section of his garden. Within a single growing season, the results are impossible to ignore. The treated section produces vegetables of greater size, deeper color, and far more vigorous growth than the adjacent untreated plot. In 1894, Hensel publishes Bread from Stones, arguing that rock minerals provide the complete spectrum of plant nutrition that chemical fertilizers cannot replicate, and that the emerging German fertilizer industry is wrong to focus only on nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. For saying this convincingly, the chemical fertilizer industry spent a decade destroying his reputation and removing his books from libraries. His work disappeared from mainstream agricultural science for 70 years. Hensel was not wrong. The most consistently fertile soils on Earth share one characteristic no synthetic fertilizer can replicate. They are recently glaciated or volcanically enriched soils sitting on fine rock mineral deposits. The lowest soils of China, Eastern Europe, and the American Midwest were deposited by glacial winds after the last ice age carrying fine rock flour across continents. They feed a disproportionate share of the world's population because their mineral base has never been depleted by continuous cropping. The volcanic soils of Java and Hawaii have produced continuous harvests for millennia because eruptions constantly replenish what intensive agriculture removes. In Brazil, documented field trials have shown basalt rock dust applications increasing yields on acid cerrado soils. In every case, the mechanism is identical. Geology, not chemistry, is the foundation of long-term soil fertility. Rock minerals grow food. The glacier does what the fertilizer bag pretends to do. Here's the chemistry the $200 billion fertilizer industry does not want you to understand. When rain, organic acids from roots and soil microbes contact rock minerals, weathering occurs. Mineral compounds dissolve slowly, releasing calcium, magnesium, potassium, iron, zinc, manganese, copper, silica, and dozens of trace elements into the soil solution where plant roots absorb them. This is the foundation of all soil fertility on Earth. The problem Hensel identified in 1894 and modern soil scientists confirm is that intensive agriculture removes minerals faster than natural weathering replaces them. A wheat crop removes not just nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, but silica, calcium, iron, zinc, manganese, and dozens of other elements that end up in bread and then in sewage, never returning to the field. After decades of continuous cropping, the mineral base collapses, and synthetic NPK fertilizers replace only 3 macronutrients, while the remaining spectrum becomes progressively depleted. The solution is called soil remineralization. Finely ground rock, typically basalt, granite, glacial moraine, or quarry dust, releases a complete spectrum of plant nutrition through the same weathering process that built the fertile soils of the world. A 2021 review in Science of the Total Environment analyzing 48 crop trials confirmed that silicate rock powder applications produce significant yield improvements in depleted tropical soils, with responsive crops showing 20 to 45% yield increases over untreated controls. A 2025 peer-reviewed field study published in Agriculture by researchers at the University of Virginia measured basalt rock dust applied at 2 organic farms in New England and found that plant-available calcium, magnesium, and potassium increased between 62 and 252% in the top 30 centimeters of treated soil compared to untreated controls. Soil organic carbon concentrations increased by 69 to 135% in the top 20 centimeters. These are not marginal improvements. They are transformations of the soil profile produced by a material that costs $2 per bag. By 1924, the synthetic fertilizer industry had consolidated around the Haber-Bosch process, which manufactures nitrogen fertilizer by combining atmospheric nitrogen with hydrogen at extreme heat and pressure using natural gas as a hydrogen source. It is profitable precisely because it cannot be replicated by any farmer from any material found in nature. It must be purchased at prices tied to fossil fuel markets that no farmer can control. The same consolidated chemical companies that produce synthetic nitrogen also produce phosphate and potash from mined deposits, becoming progressively concentrated in the hands of a small number of global corporations. The global fertilizer market was valued at approximately $144 billion in 2024 and is projected to reach nearly $200 billion by 2032. The entire revenue model depends on one principle: that farmers believe their soil cannot feed plants without the products that industry sells them at prices only that industry controls. A bag of quarry basalt dust costs approximately $2 to $5 per 50 pounds at any stone or gravel supplier, landscape supply yard, or agricultural mineral supplier. At the application rates documented in research trials, a 50-pound bag treats approximately 100 square feet of garden soil or a fraction of an acre of field-scale agriculture. For a home garden, a single 50-pound bag provides a complete soil remineralization treatment that may last 3 to 5 years before the mineral base requires replenishment. For a 1-acre market garden, the annual mineral input of basalt rock dust applied at agricultural research trial rates costs between $20 and $80 per acre, compared to the NPK fertilizer program for the same acre costing between $150 and $400 depending on crop type and soil condition. The rock dust application does not require a reapplication schedule timed to the crop's nitrogen demand window. It does not wash out in rain or volatilize in heat. It releases minerals continuously through the growing season, exactly as natural soil weathering does, because it is natural soil weathering. The synthetic fertilizer industry suppressed Hensel's work through reputation destruction rather than regulatory action, which was far more effective and less traceable. The German chemical establishment was dominated by successors of Justus von Liebig, whose NPK theory was the intellectual foundation of the emerging fertilizer business. Liebig had acknowledged before his death in 1873 that his three-element theory was incomplete and that trace minerals matter. His successors did not acknowledge this because the business model required that plant nutrition be reducible to 3 commercially controllable compounds. Hensel was attacked not because his results were wrong, but because they were dangerous to a profitable framework. His book was called A Gross Swindle. It was removed from libraries. After Hensel died, his work was absent from mainstream agricultural science for 7 decades, until a grassroots movement in the 1970s and 1980s rediscovered it. The suppression that followed was institutional and persistent. The agricultural extension system in the United States, which provides agricultural guidance to farmers through land-grant universities, is funded substantially through industry partnerships with fertilizer, pesticide, and seed companies. Extension publications and farmer education programs throughout the 20th century consistently promoted NPK fertilizer programs while treating soil mineral deficiencies as secondary concerns to be addressed through specialty micronutrient amendments rather than through the complete mineral spectrum available from rock dust. Agricultural research funding in the United States has historically been dominated by industry-funded projects directed at commercially valuable outputs, which excluded remineralization research because rock dust cannot be patented, cannot be monopolized, and is available at every quarry in the country for the price of a few dollars per bag. The result was not a conspiracy. It was the structural outcome of a research and extension system built around commercially exploitable inputs rather than farmer-accessible solutions. But here is what the industry cannot suppress. Rock dust is geology. The volcanic basalt that produced the fertile soils of Java has been doing so without any industrial assistance since the volcanoes last erupted. The glacial loess that built the American Midwest topsoil was distributed by ice age winds across thousands of miles without any patent protection. Every quarry in the United States produces thousands of tons of rock dust as a byproduct of aggregate production that is either stockpiled as waste or sold as fill material at near zero cost. Crushed basalt, granite quarry fines, glacial rock flour, and volcanic rock powder are available from agricultural mineral suppliers, landscape supply companies, garden centers, and stone quarries in every region of the country. The compound is not a product. It is the Earth's crust, finely divided. It cannot be made scarce, it cannot be made proprietary, and it cannot be taxed by any corporation. Published research on soil remineralization continues to accumulate. A comprehensive review published in Science of the Total Environment in 2021, analyzing results from 48 separate crop trials, concluded that silicate rock powders represent a credible alternative nutrient source for potassium and multi-mineral amendment in strongly weathered soils, with beneficial results consistently observed in mafic and ultramafic rock types, including basalt. The Remineralize the Earth organization has documented research showing yield increases of 2 to 4 times in agriculture and forestry from single applications of basalt rock dust, citing Sauter and Forst's 1987 German forest study showing 4 times greater tree wood volume after 24 years of basalt application. Research at Brazil's Embrapa Agricultural Research Center has tested rock powder applications across multiple crop types in the Cerrado, with documented soil chemistry improvements, including measurable increases in potassium, calcium, and magnesium availability. Now here's exactly what to do. Go to a stone quarry, landscape supply yard, agricultural mineral supplier, or garden center and ask for basalt fines, granite quarry dust, volcanic rock powder, or crushed trap rock. Any dark-colored mafic or igneous rock in finely ground form will work. Avoid pure limestone or calcium carbonate products, as these are single mineral amendments rather than complete mineral spectrum materials. A bag of basalt rock dust should cost between $2 and $5 for a 50-pound bag from most suppliers. For home gardens, apply the rock dust at a rate of approximately 10 to 20 pounds per 100 square feet of garden bed, working it into the top 6 inches of soil with a garden fork or tiller. For containers and raised beds, mix the rock dust into your potting medium at a rate of approximately 1 cup per cubic foot of growing medium. Water the treated area thoroughly after application to begin the weathering and mineral release process. The rock dust will continue releasing minerals through every subsequent watering and rainfall event for years after the initial application, feeding the soil microbiome that drives plant health. For field-scale agriculture, basalt rock dust is applied by spreading equipment at rates typically between 2 and 4 tons per acre in documented research trials. At current quarry prices for rock finds, the material cost of a field-scale application is substantially lower per acre than a single season's NPK fertilizer program. The release of minerals from rock dust continues over multiple growing seasons from a single application, meaning the cost per season benefit compounds over time rather than requiring annual repurchase. For gardeners and homesteaders, the process is simpler. Spread rock dust on your beds in spring or fall, work it lightly into the soil surface, and water well. The combination of rock dust with compost dramatically accelerates mineral release because the organic acids produced by decomposing organic matter are exactly the chemical agents that weather rock minerals fastest. A thick layer of compost over a rock dust application creates a self-feeding mineral cycling system that approaches the fertility of a glacial deposit in miniature. The soil beneath your garden is old. It has been farmed, stripped, compacted, acidified, and simplified by decades of chemical agriculture that fed 3 elements back while removing 60. Generations of intensive cropping have left fields that struggle to produce the nutritional density they once carried, requiring ever-increasing synthetic input to maintain yields that mask an underlying mineral poverty spreading through every vegetable, grain, and fruit grown on depleted ground. The good news is that the solution sits at every quarry, gravel yard, and stone supplier in the country, waiting as it has always waited at a fraction of the cost of the synthetic inputs that have replaced it. For a typical home garden, a 50-pound bag of basalt rock dust costs $2 to $5 and provides a complete mineral amendment that will continue releasing nutrients through weathering for multiple growing seasons from a single application. Hensel knew this in 1882 when his stone meal turned a depleted garden into something extraordinary. Brazilian farmers know it now, watching yields climb on acid soils that synthetic fertilizers have failed for decades. The UC Davis researchers know it, measuring soil microbiome recovery and reduced synthetic input requirements in California fields after their first rock dust application. The geology was always the answer. The chemical industry just needed you to forget that soil is made of rock, and that rock is made of everything a plant will ever need. A bag of quarry dust that costs $2 and releases its minerals for 5 years is not a competitor to a $200 billion fertilizer industry. It is the thing that makes that industry unnecessary. Subscribe and share this video. Every share puts this knowledge in the hands of a gardener or farmer who deserves to stop buying what the earth has been giving away since the last ice age. The next vault opens soon.